Hey everyone, it's Eric with the Space Stock Exchange, coming to you with news, information on publicly traded companies involved in the space sector. So lately, a few friends have been asking, when are you going to do your next video? And I've put this off for a while, and I figured now was a good time to talk a little bit more. Recently I talked about the company Momentus and its stock involved in a SPAC known as SRAC. I talked about how I thought there was some potential, and actually after I published that video, the stock did go up quite a bit. That doesn't make me a financial expert. You could say I got lucky. Maybe it was just the hype alone around this company, but I do see it as a good company long term when you're talking about space tugs. So if you want to know more about that, I would recommend going to that video, checking it out, and like and subscribe. I got more videos. I started the Reddit page, Space Stock Exchange. It's great that there's this community where everyone can come together and talk about space stocks. So usually when people do due diligence talking about companies, they write it out. I've kind of wrote out some stuff on some companies, but I want to talk a little bit about it on here just because I can throw in some videos and stuff, and I think it's better to just record it since I can express more of my thoughts. And yeah, so that's about it.
We were born to look up. It's intrinsic, instinctive, undeniable. To be human is to be curious. To wonder what lies above. To dream of what awaits. To imagine what it feels like, what it sounds like, and what it looks like.
Virgin Galactic. You're clear for departure.
Welcome to space.
Imagine will take you there. Introducing VSS Imagine, the first Spaceship 3 in the Virgin Galactic fleet.
Recently, Virgin Galactic has had its fair share of skeptics. Years of delays, accidents, and other problems have caused many to lose confidence in the space tourism company. Recently, Virgin Galactic unveiled its next-generation vehicle, the Spaceship 3, and some critics have been calling it nothing more than a PR stunt. However, I believe there is more than meets the eye after doing my own due diligence. I'm convinced this company has a long-term bull case that the stock could benefit from in the coming years. And that's why I want to talk more about Virgin Galactic, because there has been a lot of criticism in this company. Some people think it's all hype. There's this SPAC craze, and we're not sure if it's a good investment. But I've been looking into this company, and I've become more confident. So first, some history. In 2004, Burt Rutan's company, Scaled Composites, won the Ansari X Prize competition when it sent a privately built human spacecraft above the Kármán line into space. The vehicle, Spaceship One, was launched from an aircraft called White Knight. This air-launched, rocket-powered capability allowed the craft to reach suborbital space. So it has similarities to the X-15 program used by NASA in the 1960s. People kind of forget about the X-15. Neil Armstrong was a pilot, one of the pilots involved, and this vehicle actually did get high enough to be classified as space. The Kármán line is at 100 kilometers, and that is the definition of space, because it's considered to be out of the atmosphere, or the atmosphere close enough to Earth to be considered space. So, when Burt Rutan Skilled Composites successfully launched the Spaceship One, British entrepreneur Richard Branson took interest, and he bought the technology to start his own space tourism company. This is how Virgin Galactic was born. Its plan was to use a bigger vehicle called the Spaceship Two that would launch from a larger aircraft called the White Knight 2. And it would be capable of carrying 6 passengers to space, suborbital space, along with 2 pilots that would fly. So Branson's Virgin Galactic and Rutan's Scaled Composite would create a joint venture together called the Spaceship Company, and plans to build the next generation of suborbital spaceship would begin. So this is where the delays started to happen. Branson originally believed that he could send paying tourists to space as early as 2007, but the development of this spacecraft took longer than expected. At this time, it looked like Virgin Galactic was more focused on marketing rather than engineering problems, and there were problems with Scaled Composites' work culture that started to show. Burt Rutan was not a fan of government regulation and casually trash-talked NASA about how he was able to build a spacecraft for the fraction of what the space agency spent. This is true. NASA was really expensive program at that time. But Rutan had this laissez-faire approach to developing and testing new technology. Scaled Composites showed opposition to regulation, and its lack of oversight led to growing dangers in the workplace, especially when it came to the development and testing of a rocket-powered vehicles. In 2007, 3 engineers were killed in an explosion while testing components of a Spaceship Two rocket motor. If better safety procedures were in place, the loss of life could have probably been avoided. The aircraft White Knight 2 would take flight in 2008, but the first Spaceship 2 would not be unveiled in 2010 with the name VSS Enterprise. The Spaceship 2 would go through multiple glide tests over the following years, and power flights would begin in 2013. In October 2014, on VSS Enterprise's 4th powered flight, disaster occurred. Due to pilot error and possible miscommunication, the feathering re-entry system was deployed too early while the craft was still being powered by the rocket motor. The craft would break apart in the atmosphere. 1 pilot was killed, and the other forced to eject and parachute to safety, but he was seriously injured. It was determined pilot error was a result of the crash, and that the Scaled Composites pilots' relaxed behavior towards safety helped contribute towards the accident. Virgin Galactic would begin to distance itself from Scaled Composites and focus more on safety. A new Spaceship 2 would be built, this time named VSS Unity. I believe since then Virgin Galactic has had a long focus on improving safety procedures and has put in place any corrective measures to prevent another tragedy. As awful as the VSS Enterprise crash was, I believe it is better that it occurred during the testing phase rather than with multiple paying customers. More people could have been killed during commercial flights, and this would have been awful. The delays that have occurred with Virgin Galactic in this post-Enterprise period are related to safety as a top priority. I believe Virgin Galactic is focused on safety over anything else. Meeting time schedules are not a reason to compromise safety, and I agree with that. If you want this company to survive, safety needs to be your top priority. Meeting, these timetables just don't compare to safety. Safety needs to be first. But of course, this has led to massive amount of delays, and people are losing confidence in this. They don't believe that the spaceship program will be able to increase the launch cadence to allow it to be a successful company in delivering tourists. Right now, the company has no profits, it has no revenue, and both space journalists and people in the financial industry are calling it a terrible investment. But people like me, maybe I'm an idiot, I don't know, I've been buying this stock since it went public back in 2019. I've been buying a little bit at a time. And there's been moments where the stock has climbed up quite a bit that's really made me think about selling. And the truth is, I keep holding because I want to see this company become successful. I believe they're going to fly. I admit I have an emotional investment in this company. I was 15 years old when I saw Spaceship One fly to space. I wasn't there, but I saw it, through television, the internet, and I was super excited. I said, this is the future. I want to be a part of that. I want to see this next generation vehicle. I want to see Virgin Galactic survive and send humans to space. And my first laptop I bought in 2007 actually had a CGI image of the Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2 on it because I was, invested in this company. But, years and years of really no space flights, just the test program and then the disaster, it really, you started to lose confidence in this program. You thought, is it ever going to fly? Well, I did some research, and I started looking at the technology. So I got notes. There's some great sources I gathered. I believe it is the Washington Post had an article called Virgin Galactic's Rocket Man, or it talks about one of the pilots involved in the program. There should be a book coming out called Test Gods, which will go into more detail. It is important to note that Virgin Galactic had a spin-off company. There were plans that Richard Branson wanted to deliver small satellites with the technology, and the spin-off company was Virgin Orbit, and Virgin Orbit has successfully delivered several satellites to space, to orbit on their Launcher 1 space launch system, their rocket. It's an air launch system that is launched from a Boeing 747 known as Cosmic Girl. And it's good to see that this success is happening, but keep in mind it's a completely different system than what the Spaceship 2 is using. So the VSS Unity did ramp up fairly quickly. It took a few years. It did not I think the first glide flights took place in late 2017. Let me check real fast. Yeah, first glide flight took place in December of 2016. Its first powered flight occurred in April of 2018. So it took a little more than a year to get ramped up. But when it did get to those powered flights, each powered flight was more significant than the next, even though there was some downtime in between that. And keep in mind, those first powered flights took place in April of 2018, and the first flight to reach outer space was in December of 2018. Then you had a second flight in February of 2019. This was 2 pilots and 1 passenger who was Beth Moses, that was Mike Moses's wife. He's in charge of safety, and it went successful. The vehicle landed. However, this is where problems occurred. When the craft returned, an inspection found a wide gap running along the trailing edge of the right H-stab, also known as the horizontal stabilizer, which is to keep the vehicle stable during flight. Part of the seal had broken during the flight as the vehicle traveled to the edge of space. It was discovered that thermal protection coating was incorrectly applied, which blocked vents preventing air to escape. At higher altitudes, the pressure in the atmosphere decreases, but the air within the craft increased during the climbing flight. The pressure ruptured the seal that allows the horizontal stabilizer to connect to the rest of the craft. After seeing the gap, Virgin Galactic began to put an even stronger emphasis on safety and detection of any hazards on the craft. An outside aviation expert was hired to conduct a safety review. It was determined the problem was not with the craft, but rather a processing error that occurred on the ground. A focus has been put on maintenance teams to carefully inspect the craft before each flight and find any possible problems, such as noticing vents are blocked. New stabilizers have been built for the vehicle out of metal rather than carbon fiber, and I assume this has been applied to the new fleet of Spaceship 3s. With every issue comes more corrections and increased practices in safety. So, critics have been pointing this flight out about the horizontal stabilizer and how it failed. And they like to bring up that this could have killed the crew. But I believe the amount of downtime we have had since that flight, massive amount of corrective action has been put in place. All types of preventative maintenance has been put in place. So, I believe they've overcome this problem. And when the December flight in 2020 occurred, they dropped the Spaceship 2. It was ready to take off. It fired for a little bit, and they realized they had an EMI, electric magnetic interference, interfering with the craft. They caused it to automatically abort. So the rocket motor stopped, and the aircraft glided to safety. So the good thing that came out of that is they proved that they had a safe abort system, but this EMI was a result of new technology added into the spacecraft that was meant for the horizontal stabilizer. So it was actually relatively new technology. It had been tested on the ground, but it had not been tested in flight yet. And keep in mind, that mission was supposed to be a space flight and not a glide test. So they could have possibly had a glide test. They might have been able to test it during the flight. I think they have taken the corrective action towards that. They probably had to do some programming, maybe rewrite software. Who knows? It's taken them longer than they thought. But I believe they will be ready for those May flights. That flight in May is what I'm saying. All right, let's summarize. Let's go through everything. From 2004 to 2010, Virgin Galactic was focused on marketing, while Scaled Composites was mostly in charge of building the craft. It took them longer than they thought, and there was a reckless culture within Scaled Composites that Virgin Galactic would later decide it wanted to distance itself from. Then from 2010 to 2014, there was a massive amount of glide tests, maybe like 30, 40, something like that. There was, there could be a few weeks, a few days in between each glide test, and it took them a while to get where they wanted. And then as a result, you had as a result of pilot error. You had a disaster occur in October of 2014. Because of this, the program was grounded. They would not be back to flying. They would have to build a completely new craft. They did not fly until the glide test did not take place until December of 2016. But even though there's some time during those year or two, they were able to ramp up actually quite a bit. They only had just a small amount of missions, maybe 7 or 8, but they were able to get to the powered flights quickly. They were able to reach the edge of outer space. By definition, they reached what the United States considers the edge of space. And after their second space flight, it was determined that they needed to spend some time working on the vehicle because of the horizontal stabilizer program. Like I said, I believe corrective action has been put in place because of this. And then, because of the new technology being used, new programs, new software, caused the EMI, which has delayed it by a few months. And I think we are just about there for the next test flight in May. And when this occurs, it'll prove the system. Then they need 2 more test flights in the summer, both of which will be fully crewed with passengers. On the third one, the second of the fully crewed ones, you will have Richard Branson fly. Then there will be one more mission with the Italian Space Agency, actually the Italian Air Force, that will test it and see if it's capable of, conducting scientific research that could be used for space. And then the VSS Unity will be temporarily, on the ground for several months so they can conduct all this research and look into it deeper. But keep in mind, they just unveiled the Spaceship 3. They're calling it the VSS Imagine. And a lot of people just say, well, it's just a shiny Spaceship 2. That's all it is some chrome paint to make it look nice. But they do say the chrome helps keep the engine protected from the heat of the rocket motor. And also, they've brought up that there's a lot of panels around it that allows them to reach inside the craft to places they might not have been able to reach before. And they believe with this, they can ramp up production and have, shorter maintenance time. So there should be more and more flights. And they've already talked about, Spaceship 3, it's going to have there's going to be the VSS Imagine. They're already working on the VSS Inspire. I know they're working on next generation vehicles that can allow them to have even more flights. So it's still hard to be sold on whether or not this is a good company. We need to watch more, test flights occurring, and if we see some progress, that's great. It'll be exciting to see. I can't give you any advice on which way the stock will go, but it seems like with good news, it will go up. With bad news, it goes down. And it is very speculative. The Wall Street bets culture has kind of taken over this stock. There's a lot of retail investors who are in it, but probably don't know what they're doing, so this stock can go up or down. It's crazy. Like I said, if you want to invest in it, do your own research. It can be super risky, but I'm in it for the long run, and I want to see this company fly, and I actually have a good feeling about it. So I'm going to talk more about it another time, and in the meantime, like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this. Follow the Reddit community, Space Stock Exchange. They talk about so many great companies that I think have so much potential. Rocket Lab, Momentous, Astra. There's so many SPACs that could be risky, but I think are worth looking into just to get to know them better. And that's about it. Thanks for watching.